The crowded diner buzzed with chatter, the smell of coffee and pancakes filling the air. At a small corner table, a woman sat alone, her gray scarf loose around her neck, her glasses perched on her nose. She looked ordinary, like someone's kind grandma, sipping tea and scribbling notes in a worn notebook. Nobody noticed her until three loud men in fancy suits stormed in, laughing and talking over everyone. They pushed past the waitress, demanding the best table. When the waitress pointed to the only free spot near the quiet woman, they sneered. "Hey, old lady, move it," one man barked, his voice sharp like a whip. He had slicked back hair and a shiny watch that glinted under the diner's lights. "This isn't a library for nobodies. Go knit somewhere else." The other two laughed, calling her granny and mocking her plain clothes. The woman froze, her pen hovering over her notebook. The diner went silent, every eye on her. Slowly, she looked up, her calm eyes locking onto the men. For a moment, it felt like the air crackled. Then she smiled a small, mysterious smile that sent a chill through the room. "You'll regret that," she said softly, her voice steady but sharp. The men laughed louder, but the waitress gasped, her tray shaking. What did this woman mean? Who was she? The men didn't care, they just kept mocking her. But something in her eyes promised trouble. Earlier that morning, the town of Willow Creek was quiet, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone. The woman, Clara, had arrived on the early bus, her scarf wrapped tight against the chilly wind. She carried a small bag and that same worn notebook, her only treasures. Nobody paid her much attention as she walked into the diner and sat in her usual corner. Clara liked it that way. She wasn't one for fancy things or loud attention. She just wanted her tea and a quiet place to think. But Clara had a secret, a big one. She wasn't just a simple woman passing through. She was Justice Clara Monroe, one of the most powerful judges in the country, a Supreme Court justice who decided the biggest laws in the land. Nobody in Willow Creek knew. She liked to visit small towns in disguise, away from the busy city in her heavy robes, to listen to people, to understand their lives. It helped her make fair choices in court. But today, her quiet visit was about to turn upside down. Clara had seen men like these before, rich, loud, thinking they owned the world. The leader, a man named Victor Kane, was a businessman who owned half the buildings in town. He was used to getting his way, pushing people around with his money and his sharp tongue. His friends, Tom and Greg, followed him like shadows, laughing at his cruel jokes. They didn't know Clara was watching them, her pen moving slowly as she wrote in her notebook. She wasn't just writing notice, she was remembering every word they said, every insult they threw. Clara had learned long ago that words could be weapons, and she knew how to use them better than anyone. The diner's other customers whispered nervously. The waitress, a young woman named Lily, hovered nearby, unsure what to do. She liked Clara, who always left a big tip and a kind smile. But Victor was powerful, and crossing him could mean trouble. Lily's hand shook as she poured coffee, glancing at Clara. Did the old woman really mean what she said? Could she make men like Victor regret anything? The tension in the diner grew thicker, like a storm about to break. Then, Victor leaned closer to Clara's table, his voice dripping with mockery. "What's in that notebook, Granny? Your grocery list? Or maybe a letter to your cat?" His friends roared with laughter, slapping the table. Clara didn't flinch. She closed her notebook, her fingers steady, and looked straight at Victor. "It's a list," she said, her voice so calm it made the hairs on Lily's neck stand up. "A list of people who think they're untouchable." Victor's smile faltered for a split second, but he laughed it off, turning to his friends. "Hear that? Granny's got a list. Better watch out." The diner erupted in uneasy murmurs. Nobody knew what Clara meant, but her words felt like a warning, a promise. Suddenly, the door swung open, and a man in a dark suit stepped inside. He wasn't from Willow Creek. His face was serious, and he carried a briefcase with a strange seal on it. He scanned the room, his eyes landing on Clara. The diner went quiet again. Victor and his friend stopped laughing. The man walked straight to Clara's table, ignoring everyone else. "Justice Monroe," he said, his voice low but clear. "We need you. Now." The room froze. Victor's face turned pale. Justice Monroe? The Supreme Court Justice? The woman they just insulted, was that Clara Monroe? Gasps filled the diner. Clara stood, her scarf slipping to reveal a small pin on her Kawata golden scale, the symbol of justice. She looked at Victor, her eyes like steel. "We'll talk soon," she said, and walked toward the door with the man. The diner door slammed shut behind her, leaving everyone stunned. What had Victor just done? And what was Clara going to do next? The diner was a mess of whispers and wide eyes after Clara left with the mysterious man. Victor Kane stood frozen, his fancy suit suddenly looking too tight, his face pale as milk. His friends, Tom and Greg, stared at the door, their laughter gone. Justice Monroe? Tom muttered, his voice shaky. "The Supreme Court lady? No way." Greg nudged him, whispering, "We're in big trouble, aren't we?" Victor snapped out of it, forcing a grin. "Trouble? From some old lady? She's bluffing. Nobody scares me." But his hands shook as he grabbed his coffee, spilling it on the table. The other customers watched, some hiding smiles, others looking worried. Lily, the waitress, stood behind the counter, her heart racing. She'd always thought Clara was special, but a Supreme Court justice? That was huge. And Victor had just insulted her. What was going to happen now? Back at the start of the day, before the diner drama, Victor had been on top of the world. He owned half of Willow Creek stores, houses, even the town's only hotel. People bowed to him, scared to cross him. He loved it. That morning he'd met Tom and Greg at his big office to plan a new deal. Victor wanted to buy the diner's land and turn it into a shiny new store. The diner's owner, an old man named Sam, refused to sell. "That place is my heart," Sam had said. Victor didn't care. He'd push Sam out one way or another. "Nobody says no to me," Victor told his friends, smirking. They laughed, already planning a big celebration at the diner that evening. They had no idea Clara was there, listening, writing in her notebook. Clara, meanwhile, had come to Willow Creek for peace. Being a Supreme Court justice was heavy work. She made choices that changed Liv's big laws about fairness, freedom, and justice. But in the city, everyone treated her like a queen, and she missed real people. So she traveled to small towns like Willow Creek, dressed plain, no fancy robes or guards. She listened to folks talk about their lives, farmers, shopkeepers, waitresses like Lily. It helped her understand the world better. Her notebook wasn't just for notes. It held ideas, stories, and sometimes names of people who broke the rules of fairness. Today, Victor's name was at the top. Now, outside the diner, Clara stood with a man in the dark suit. His name was Agent Harris, and he worked for the government. "Justice Monroe, we've got a problem," he said, his voice low. "There's a big case coming to your court. It's about powerful people cheating small towns like this one. We need your help fast." Clara nodded, her face calm but her mind racing. She glanced back at the diner, thinking of Victor. His insults didn't bother her, she'd heard worse. But his attitude, his bullying, reminded her of the case Harris was talking about. Men like Victor thought they could step on anyone. Clara's job was to stop them. Inside, Victor tried to act tough. He waved at Lily, yelling, "Coffee now!" But his voice cracked, and Lily saw his fear. She poured the coffee slowly, her mind on Clara. What did Clara mean by, "we'll talk soon"? Was she going to punish Victor? Lily hoped so. Victor had bullied Sam, the diner's owner, for months, trying to take his land. If anyone could stop him, maybe it was Clara. But how? She was just one woman, even if she was a big judge. The diner's door jingled, and Sam walked in, his face tired. He was old, with gray hair and a limp, but his eyes were kind. He saw Victor and frowned. "What's going on?" he asked Lily. She whispered about Clara and the insults. Sam's eyes widened. "Justice Monroe? Here?" He looked at Victor, who was pretending to laugh with his friends. Sam knew Victor's plan to take the diner. If Clara was a judge, maybe she could help. But Sam was scared Victor had powerful friends too. Suddenly, Victor's phone rang. He answered, his face turning red. "What do you mean the deal's in trouble?" he shouted. Everyone heard. Tom and Greg looked nervous. Victor hung up, slamming the phone on the table. "Some lawyer's poking around my business," he growled. "Says there's a complaint about the diner land." He glared around the room, like it was their fault. Lily's heart skipped. A complaint? Could it be Clara? The customers whispered louder, some smiling now. Victor's power was cracking, and they could feel it. Then the door swung open again. Agent Harris was back, alone this time. He walked straight to Victor's table, his briefcase clicking open. "Mr. Kane," he said loud enough for everyone to hear, "we need to talk about your business deals, now." He pulled out a thick folder with Victor's name on it. The diner went dead quiet. Victor's grin vanished. His friends backed away, like they didn't know him. Lily clutched her tray, her eyes wide. Sam stood taller, hope in his face. The customers leaned closer, holding their breath. What was in that folder? Was Clara behind this? And what would happen to Victor now? The diner felt like it was holding its breath as Agent Harris stood over Victor Kane, his thick folder open on the table. Victor's face was a mix of anger and fear, his eyes darting like a trapped animal's. "What's this about?" he snapped, but his voice wobbled. Tom and Greg, his so-called friends, slid their chairs back, looking ready to bolt. Lily, the waitress, clutched her tray tighter, her heart pounding. Sam, the diner's owner, watched from the counter, his tired eyes flickering with hope. The customers leaned in, whispering. Everyone knew something big was happening, and it all tied back to Clarath's quiet woman Victor had mocked. But where was she now, and what was in that folder? That morning, before the diner drama, Clara had been sitting in her corner, listening to the town's heartbeat. She overheard Lily talking to Sam about Victor's plan to take the diner's land. Clara's pen moved faster in her notebook, jotting down every detail. She knew men like Victor bullies who used money to push people around. As a Supreme Court justice, Clara had seen cases like this before. Rich men cheating small towns, breaking laws to get richer. Her job was to make things fair, and her heart told her Willow Creek needed her help. When Agent Harris found her later, he confirmed her suspicions. "There's a case coming to your court," he'd said. "It's about land scams in small towns. Victor Kane's name keeps popping up." Clara's calm eyes had sharpened. She didn't believe in coincidences. Now, Clara was outside the diner, standing by a black car with Agent Harris's partner. She held her notebook, her scarf fluttering in the wind. "Victor's not just a bully," she told the agent. "He's breaking laws. I heard enough in there to know he's trying to steal Sam's land." The agent nodded, writing fast. Clara's words carry weight. She wasn't just a witness. She was a justice. Her notebook wasn't just notes. It was evidence. She'd written down Victor's threats, his insults, and the way he bragged about pushing Sam out. Clara knew the law like her own heartbeat, and she saw Victor's crimes clear as day. Back inside, Agent Harris dropped a bombshell. "Mr. Kane," he said, pulling papers from the folder, "we have proof you've been forging documents to take this diner's land." The diner gasped. Lily's tray slipped, clattering to the floor. Sam's mouth fell open. Victor laughed, but it sounded forced. "That's nonsense," he shouted. "You've got nothing on me." Harris didn't blink. He laid out papers, letters, contracts, even emails with Victor's name. These show you lied about the diner's value to force Sam to sell cheap, Harris said. That's fraud. The word hit like thunder. Fraud? Victor, the untouchable man, was a criminal? Victor's friends, Tom and Greg, stood up, muttering excuses. We didn't know, Tom stammered, backing toward the door. Greg nodded, his face red. Yeah, this is all Victor. The customers booed, their fear of Victor melting away. Lily stepped closer, braver now. You've been scaring Sam for months, she said, her voice shaking but loud. Sam nodded, his eyes wet. You tried to take my home, he said. Victor glared, his charm gone. You're all nothing, he spat. I'll sue you all. But nobody believed him anymore. His power was crumbling. Then, Harris said something that made everyone freeze. This investigation started because of a tip from someone in this diner. He looked around, his eyes pausing on the empty corner where Clara had sat. The customers whispered, Was it her? Victor's face twisted. That old lady? He roared. She's nobody. Harris smiled just a little. You'd be surprised, he said. He closed the folder and leaned in. You're coming with me, Mr. Kane. We've got more questions. Victor's chair scraped as he stood, his hands shaking. You can't do this, he yelled. But Harris was calm, pulling out handcuffs. Handcuffs! The diner erupted in cheers and gasps. Lily ran to Sam, hugging him. It's over, she cried. Sam smiled, but his eyes were on Clara's empty table. Not yet, he said softly. He knew Clara had done this. Somehow she started it all. Outside, Clara watched through the diner's window, her face calm but her heart racing. She'd given Harris the tip, using her notebook's notes to point him to Victor's crimes, but she wasn't done. Victor's case tied to the bigger one coming to her court case about men like him hurting towns like Willow Creek. She'd make sure justice was served, not just here, but everywhere. Suddenly, a shout came from inside. Victor lunged at Harris, grabbing for the folder. You won't take me, he screamed. The customers screamed too, ducking under tables. Harris stumbled, papers flying. Victor bolted for the door, his eyes wild. Lily gasped, pointing. He's getting away! Sam grabbed his cane, ready to block the door. Outside, Clara's eyes narrowed. She stepped forward, her scarf falling to show her golden justice pin. The door burst open, and Victor ran out straight toward Clara. He froze, seeing her. You? He gasped. Clara's voice was steel. You thought I was nobody, she said. Now you'll learn who I am. Victor's face went white as agents grabbed him, cuffs clicking tight. The diner cheered, but Clara's words echoed. What did she mean? And what would she do next? The Willow Creek diner buzzed with excitement and disbelief as Victor Kane was dragged away in handcuffs, his fancy suit crumpled, his face a mask of shock. Outside, Clara stood tall, her scarf now off, her golden justice pin catching the morning light. The crowd inside pressed against the windows, whispering, That's really her? A Supreme Court justice? Lily, the waitress, clutched Sam's arm, her eyes wide. She saved us, Sam. Sam nodded, his tired face breaking into a smile. For the first time in months, he felt hope. But Clara's words to Victor echoed in everyone's minds. Now you'll learn who I am. What did she mean? Was this just about Victor? Or was something bigger coming? Earlier that day, Clara had sat quietly in the diner, listening to the town's struggles. She'd heard Lily whisper to a cook about how Victor's threats had kept Sam awake at night, worrying about losing the diner his parents built. Clara's notebook wasn't just for notes, it was her weapon, filled with details of injustice she'd seen across the country. She knew Victor's type, men who thought money made them untouchable. But Clara also knew the law, and she'd spent years making sure it protected people like Sam and Lily. When Agent Harris found her, he'd brought news of a federal investigation into land scams, with Victor's name at the center. Clara had handed over her notebook, her neat handwriting laying out Victor's threats like a map to his crimes. Now, back in the present, the diner was alive with chatter. Lily ran outside, her apron flapping. "Miss Claral! Justice Monroe!" she called, breathless. "Did you do this? Did you stop him?" Clara turned, her eyes kind but sharp. "I just pointed the way, Lily," she said. "The law does the rest." Lily frowned, confused. "But why were you here, dressed like a regular person?" Clara smiled. "To listen, to see what's really happening. The law isn't just for big cities, it's for places like Willow Creek too." Lily's eyes sparkled. She felt like she'd met a hero. Inside, Sam gathered the customers, his voice stronger now. "Victor's gone, but we need to stand up," he said. "He's not the only one trying to take what's ours." The crowd nodded, some clapping. They'd been scared of Victor for too long, but Clara's courage was catching. A farmer stood up saying, "I got papers from Victor's men, tutoring to buy my land cheap." Others chimed in, sharing stories of Victor's tricks. The diner became a meeting hall, voices rising with new strength. Clara watched from outside, nodding to herself. This was why she came to places like this, to spark change. But then, a sleek car screeched into the diner's lot. A man in a sharp suit stepped out, his face grim. He wasn't from Willow Creek, and he carried a fancy briefcase with the same seal as Agent Harris's. "Justice Monroe," he said, striding toward Clara. "We have a problem. Victor's partners, they're coming for you." Clara's face didn't change, but her hand tightened on her notebook. The crowd hushed, sensing trouble. Lily gasped, grabbing Sam's arm. "What's happening?" she whispered. The man leaned closer to Clara, his voice low. "They know you're here, and they're not happy." Clara's eyes narrowed, her justice pen gleaming like a warning. "Let them come," she said, her voice steady. The car's engine roared, and headlights flashed in the distance. Someone was coming fast. Who were Victor's partners? And what would Clara do now?